Yo, I think we are rolling. What's going on, guys? My name is Jason. Uh, you probably know that. You're here from perhaps being friends with me on Facebook or any other medium in which we may be friends. I just wanted to make some kind of video or podcast or some kind of content for the internet that kind of speaks to what I feel like I know a little bit about. This is something I've been thinking about for a while, and um, I'm just passionate about art and songwriting and people and a lot of different things. And so I don't know if I'm going to start vlogging or do something, but I just wanted to start with this video, and this video being talking about what is good art, how do we make good art, and why should we make good art. And so just for those of you who don't know, kind of my background. I grew up in Michigan. I moved down to Nashville about 4 years ago. Originally was going to school for a couple years and kind of left to pursue some other things. And so I'm a songwriter. I've got a project called Chasing Ella. I also do some touring, playing guitar and doing merch and just kind of whatever I can get my hands on just to be involved in that world of music. So that's kind of my deal. What kind of got me thinking about this conversation was I was watching the Grammys like a month ago or however long ago that was. And man, I was just a little frustrated. One, because Bruno was winning everything, right? And, whatever, Bruno. I know people like Bruno. I'm not going to throw shade at Bruno, but man, it's really hard for me to get in a spot where I'm comfortable comparing like one art to another art, I guess, or one song to another song, or record to a record, or whatever, because art is so subjective, right? The things we make really are not comparable because everyone has such a different, experience with it. And so it just got me thinking, like, what are the things that I can quantify about art that like make it like objectively good? And that's a tough one, I think the thing that for me, I come back to is good art is individual. It has an identifiable voice or characteristic or editing style or something that makes it different than really anything else. And obviously things are going to share common influence, and we'll kind of get to that in the next section. But first, I just wanted to give a couple examples of people who I feel like do this super well. The first is a blogger in Nashville here. Her name is Happily Gray, and I'll link her feed down in the description box below. But man, you look at her stuff, and it is so identifiably her. Her editing style, just the way that she takes pictures, like it is so unique and just like obviously, like I look at that photo and I'm like, that's a Happily Gray photo. I think another great example, and this is more in the music category, but is Adele, right? In 2011, or, obviously she had a record before that, but with 21, like nobody was wanting or looking for a British singer-songwriter piano songs about whatever, breakup and love and all this stuff. And it's not like, 40 million people were like, oh man, I just really could use that record right now. But she came on so strong and so individual. Nobody sounds like that. And so, yeah, like, it went and sold over 40 million copies just in the US alone. And which is just mind boggling in today's streaming. And that's a whole nother conversation. But I think all that goes to show, though, is that like good art is individual. And when you're making individual art, people can pick up on that. They know that. And ultimately, like, I think that's what people love about art, is that it is an individual experience, and we'll get to that kind of towards the end. But the next part I wanted to jump into is just how do you make good art? And I think the first thing to address is that nobody makes good art, or, in my case, good music, by not listening to other people's music, right? And even on a basic kind of beginning level, like, I didn't get into guitar just because like one day I was like, oh, I want to play guitar. It's like I heard something that made me want to play guitar or piano or sing or do whatever. Like there was some piece of content or art that, or photo in the case of a photographer, something that made me say, wow, that is incredible and I want to do that. And so I don't think that it's right to just, try to write off all influence as bad and say that, like just because like there's going to be threads of things that you sound like doesn't mean that you're not making good art. and on the flip side of that, I think like, when a band releases something that sounds just like something else, like for example, right now, like this whole 80s kind of laney thing is very in right now, right? That kind of minimalist synthy, pop thing. And it's really cool, right? And it was really cool when we first heard it because, or like I think about the 1975, like when they came on as like, or St. Lucia, or some of these bands that were on the beginning end of this kind of 80s revival, if you will, they came in and everyone was like, wow, like I haven't heard anything like this in a long time. Like that's crazy. And it was really cool, right? But now there's all these bands on the back end, and myself included, because I love 80s music, but it's like, we're all trying to do that now. And that's why it's going out, and I think that inevitably there's going to be bands, and I already see it, stuff like the new Foster the People record, and even a little bit of Taylor Swift's new record, like that 90s grunge thing is going to come back because nobody's doing it, right? And so ultimately, like, everything just goes in cycles, and again, that's another different conversation. But all that to say, like, the bands that really are true to themselves, and if you can just do it for long enough, like, I'm in the camp that, like, there is an audience for you out there somewhere. I think the other kind of key to access just like how to make good art comes down to self-confidence. I think to do anything well, art included in this, you have to be comfortable with failing. And you have to write a lot of bad music to write anything good. You just do. And this isn't me saying that I write incredible music because I know that I've still got a lot of room to grow, right? But I've got over 500 songs on my computer. I've got a hard drive of them that, like, I started writing in 8th grade, and I've released 30 songs total, maybe ever. And there are people who write infinitely more than I do. I've heard, like, John Foreman is a dude who writes something every single day. He's got a discipline of it, and I'm not that guy, and I would like to be, but I'm not. But all that to say, you have to be comfortable with the fact that, like, everything that you pen to paper or click on the camera, it's not going to be great. Everybody who is great or was great was also terrible at one point. We all had to learn. And so to anybody who feels discouraged about getting into for me, songwriting or music, playing an instrument, whatever that is, every person you look up to who is good or is touring or is doing something that you think you would want to be doing, they were all not doing that at one point. And they put in the work, or, maybe they were born into it, whatever the situation is, they got there somehow, and it's possible for you to do the same. So don't be discouraged by that. I think the other kind of point on self-confidence I just wanted to talk about was that art is such a revealer, I guess, of kind of what's on the heart. And if you're really making, it depends on what you want to do, right? Because you can make art that focuses on what's going on inside. You can make art that focuses on what's going on in the world around you. You can just seek to tell a story that you made up. I mean, nothing is really off limits. But I guess the camp that I often fall in is kind of focusing on myself, and whether that's selfish or whatever it is, music is a way for me to kind of sort through all the muck and kind of emotions and what's going on inside of my own heart. And so, making good art is about doing that and then being comfortable enough or confident enough to say, like, man, like, this revealed some things that I don't love, or maybe I do love them and whatever. But I've got to be comfortable knowing that, like, that art that I'm making, like, isn't my identity, even though it's revealing what's going on inside. And that's sort of a really hard line to draw. And, all that to be said, I just wanted to kind of close and just ask the question, like, why is good art worth making? Why do we make art? And, if you're viewing it as something, individual, something that, you want to be individually confident in, I think the why is the fact that the story that you're telling is a story that no one else can tell. Ultimately, you've had a human experience that is unique to the 7 billion other people on the planet right now, and every person that's ever lived. No one's experienced or seen the world like you have. And so you have something to say, whether you feel like you do or not. And if you feel like you grew up in, the middle class suburbs and you went to public school and, you know, I don't have an interesting story to tell, well, look around you, because I'm sure there's somebody around you who does. And maybe you can help tell their story, or, whatever that thing is. And so to close, and I don't really know how I want to close this, but I guess I just want to encourage anybody who is sort of on the fence about making something, or perhaps you have something established and you have just been looking around so much and seeing, man, this person's getting more likes than me, or this person's Spotify profile is bigger than mine, or whatever that thing is. And I just want to encourage you that, like, that it just doesn't matter. Good art is worth making just for its own sake. And if people hear it, that's great. If people don't, that's great. And if you're in art for the money or for whatever, like, it's not going to be as satisfying of a thing as you think it will be. And I'm, experiencing that now. I want to make a living doing this, and it's really brutal. It's really hard. It sucks, but I think it's worth it, and I'm going to keep trying to figure out if it is, and I'd like to just take you guys on that journey with me. So thanks for tuning in. I know I was kind of mumbling a lot and just kind of figuring out what I want to say, and done a couple takes of this, so we'll see. Maybe this one will get posted, but thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.